Welcome to Stardust Stereo. I'm Parker McPhinney. I'm your host. Today is the 4th of August, year 2025. Today I'm going to do a short little monologue, that's what these really are, about Mercury retrograde and if AI makes mistakes. This thought came up to me during meditation this morning. I'm not a fan of AI as far as it goes with it cultivating its knowledge from taking from the masses and not compensating. And I'm sort of curious how that happens when individuals make mistakes and put that out in the universe. Now, as an astrologer, this conversation about AI has come up. I've been directly contacted by somebody who uses one of the softwares to construct astrological information. Not that they wanted to pay me for my encyclopedia of knowledge after 30 years. It was an interesting exchange. I let it be known that I think AI is a thief. But I also do recognize that there are things that artificial intelligence, it's not really artificial, it's coming from humans, could be good at and useful. When I can't spell a word and I ask my phone, AI immediately tells me. And this actually happens quite often. And I've never really understood how you can look something up to see how it's spelled if you don't know how to spell it. I used to ask my teachers that. As somebody who's dyslexic, I'm constantly thinking that words are spelled phonetically because that's how they happen in my brain, and then sometimes they happen backwards phonetically. It's an interesting subject that I ponder. So what happens when AI makes mistakes? Because humans make mistakes. This Mercury retrograde period alone, I've sent out posts to my patrons that I later realized had a gross error in them and had to rewrite. So if AI and the people that are developing the software that AI uses, they're not perfect, they're going to make mistakes, and then that's going to go out there in the universe. Does that make our world even more filled with information that could be partially true or more opinion than actual truth? I don't have the answers to these questions. I'm throwing this out there for you to think about because I know you don't have enough to think about already. But specifically, I wondered, does AI make mistakes during a Mercury retrograde period? Like, there's so many things that overlap during a Mercury retrograde period, and you do have a tendency to go back and review and redo. And some of my astrological advice has always been triple check everything. And even sometimes when you triple check, there's an error. That error just pops up a couple hours later and you're like, oh God, how did I let that get past me? So we have one more week of this Mercury retrograde, but then of course it does have to pass the point that it was when it went retrograde to be completely clear of it. But the intensity of the reviewing, redoing, reorganizing, reassessing is still going to be quite strong for the next 7 days. And an interesting thing I have noticed for myself that I did not mention in my write-up to my patrons about Mercury retrograde, that you would not get unless you were a patron, because I just want to do a little plug. when you become a supporter of my astrological channel on patreon.com/ParkerMcP, you get written information that AI cannot access because it's not public. And it's very specific information that's useful. At least I think it's useful, as long as I get the data correct. Now, the Mercury Retrograde, that has one more week, in the sign of Leo, that deals with romance and romantic energies, and I did not really expound upon that in my written material because I was thinking on another vein. But I did recently realize how much I had been reflecting on romantic people in my life over a period of a long time. People that are romantic by nature and creative, and people that I have had significant romances with, and deciphering a little bit about my taste, because I've learned as I go up in the decades in life, your taste in who you are drawn to changes as your needs change in life. I'm not alone in this. I see this quite often in charts of people that I read for. The core issue of who they're attracted to, and by the way, who we're attracted to, will always have a significant lesson. We will not be attracted to people that do not have lessons that we are either to share with them through our interaction, or lessons that they teach us through even rejection. Sometimes we learn so much about love by not having reciprocal love. We usually think of that happening when you're a teenager and you have a crush, but it happens all through life. But even those lessons of rejection, they can take us to lessons that are quite profound about the meaning of love. So they can take us to spaces that we would have never quite gone to or wanted to go to. But if we really meditate upon the meaning of love and the variations of love, there's so much to be learned. And I've been thinking a great deal about this because of love, not only because of reflecting past relationships in my life, but also I've been reading Lou Reed's biography, and I noticed today, punching in Lou Reed's chart, that Mars, moving at that last degree of Virgo, is actually conjunct his Neptune. I love seeing those little things. So I do want to recommend this book, especially if you enjoyed Velvet Underground music. It's quite detailed. And the author is Will Hermes. Lou Reed, the King of New York. Just going to give a little PR there, plug. And that actually kind of triggered my reflecting on romance and who we're attracted to, etc. It's a very thick book, and I'm not into punk rock at all. But I have known many people who are, and I never quite understood it. And actually reading this book has helped me to understand it. Lou Reed really had an amazing travel journey through his self-expression. But the part that really interests me was his relationship with Laurie Anderson, because I'm a big Laurie Anderson fan. And actually, I don't think I even remembered that they were married, but yes, they were. And it talks a little bit about their relationship in the latter part of the book. It's a huge book. And I was really struck by the acceptance and the ability to be seen that was reflected in this sharing in the book. If it's accurate, and I think it is accurate, they had a very long, in my definition of long anyway, a partnership, even though it came at later points in their life. So this Mercury retrograde in Leo is definitely worth contemplating your own romantic creative needs and who comes into your life, and maybe a reflection of who you've learned from about love throughout your life. And that doesn't only have to be romantic love. I'm not speaking only of romantic love, even though Mercury in Leo is definitely a poetic, romantic placement. And the power of love and words. So important what we put out there. So I'm going to do another podcast or another episode following this one. This is going out immediately to everybody. I'm going to bypass my normal holding it from the public for a few days because I'm following it up with an episode about Mars in Virgo triggering the upcoming solar eclipse, which that's happening right now. And that will go out only to my patrons for the first couple of days. And since astrology is a time-based system, if you were a patron, you'd get it now. You will have to wait 48 hours for that one. And by that time, Mars will be in Libra. But it's also going to be doing some triggering of an eclipse. So that's all for now. Enjoy the sunshine if you live in sunshine. Enjoy the Mercury retrograde by doing some reflection. And don't worry about AI. But let's figure out if AI makes mistakes during a Mercury retrograde like humans do. I bet it does. Those programmers will have to go back in and rewrite code. I'm Parker McPhinney. This is Stardust Stereo. I'd like to thank you for listening. And I'd like to thank my patrons. You know who you are. If you'd like to become a patron, you can do so at patreon.com/ParkerMcP. And I want to remind you, you are made of stardust. So go shine.